Hi, I'm Vicki Turner. I am the doctoral degree coordinator in the graduate school. And this is the first fall 2023 Lion Collectors of the series. And this is a joint venture between the graduate school and the College of Innovation and Design. So one that we hope brings you some entertainment, not necessarily super serious. Just some good information and sharing time together. And for the next hour, we have two distinguished individuals taking the stage to share their interests with us, passions, projects, whatever we might be doing. Tonight we have Dr. Curtis Williams and Dr. Brad Hunchak joining us. Each will speak for approximately 20 minutes. Then we'll open up the floor for some questions. I'd like to invite Dr. Villanueva Russell to come to the mic and say a few words and introduce the first speaker.
Happy birthday!
Whoa. If only we had known.
There's no need to know that. It's our shared secret. Now we request it. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you all for being here. We are thrilled to have the Lions Lecture. It was started by Dr. Matt Wood. Has been well represented by faculty in the College of Science and Engineering. I think we've sort of depleted the faculty in that. And liberal studies is like a close second, so I think we've completed that as well. So if you're not in these departments, we're coming for you, and we would love to have you share. What I love most about this event is that I get to hear faculty talk about what they're passionate about. Like, I know that in a professional circumstance, like I serve on a committee with you, or you're my friend, but I've never heard you do your thing and talk about what you're really good at, what you're smart at. And it's just a neat way to know, meet the professors, and like let them geek out for 20 minutes about something that they're passionate about. It tends to be contagious, like I didn't know, and now I'm all interested in reptiles, or we don't have any reptiles tonight, sorry. But we do have Dr. Curtis Williams, and I'm pleased to introduce him. He was born in central Indiana, but grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania, while constantly tripping over his feet while staring up at the sky. He attended Penn State University, earning a bachelor's degree in astronomy and astrophysics, before spending a year as a Fulbright scholar studying quasars and Hefeweizen at the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics in Munich, Germany. It doesn't get any cooler than that. I want that on a t-shirt. Okay, he earned his PhD in astronomy and astrophysics at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Go banana slugs. There he met his wife and daughter. After short research stints at the University of Arizona and UT Austin, and I'm reading, I cannot write this, but he was hired for some reason by A&M Commerce, where he's been ever since. I think we're very grateful that for some reason we hired you, Dr. Williams. In addition to his wife and daughter, Dr. Williams has 5 cats and 1 dog. In his spare time, he sings in his church choir, he plays Minecraft with his niece, and he continues to trip over his feet as he stares upward. Okay, please join me in welcoming him to the stage with his talk, Whirling Dervishes in the Night Sky.
Thank you. If I want to use the pointer, we'll find out. It's a pleasure to know that I am one of the dregs of the College of Science and Engineering, now that it's depleted. But hey, you want to talk about reptiles? When I was a kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist, and I wanted to dig up dinosaur bones, and I tried to do that in my backyard many times, once finding a cow bone that I was convinced was an ancient Triceratops. But I did get to go on a dinosaur dig in college, and so that's over with. So now I do space. And yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm working on now, which is a search for rapidly rotating white dwarfs, or I like to think of them as whirling dervishes. If you are not familiar with clicking in the right direction, there we go. Whirling dervishes are a portion of the Sufi Muslim community. And the Sufis are sort of a mystical movement and have many different branches, and I'm not going to say much about them because you've already heard most things that I know. But one of the things that is excellent about, or that we love about the Whirling Dervishes, and the reason I like to watch it, I have no clue if we can get this video to play, I'm going to try, but it is a dance that, oops, oh, that didn't work. We're going to try this again. That one wants to. Well, it's okay, I can demonstrate. So, the Whirling Dervish is the name of the dancer. These are men, and it is thought that if you can complete this dance while chanting and you hold up one arm and you basically go in a circle constantly, that it brings you into a closer connection with the heavens and with God. So it's sort of a unification ceremony. And it's a small group, but well known because of the uniqueness of the dance. And if you go to YouTube and search for Whirling Dervishes, you will find many beautiful videos, of which this was just one. So that's your homework. The reason I bring up Whirling Dervishes in relation to white dwarfs is because white dwarfs, which are up in the night sky, they start with the letter WD, as does a whirling dervish. But also because the white dwarfs that I study are rapidly and constantly rotating as they go through our night sky. So a white dwarf is what's left over when a sun-like star ends its life. So our sun is doing nuclear fusion, it's converting hydrogen into helium, and one day it'll convert that helium into carbon and oxygen, and then it ends up just being a very compact ball of carbon and oxygen that starts off at a few million degrees, rapidly cools off to only 15 or 20,000 degrees, and then continues to cool off for the lifetime of the universe. And 98% of the stars in the night sky will become white dwarfs when they end their lives. And so by studying those, I like to think of it as I'm studying the fate of most of the universe. So a big heavy burden on my shoulders to do that. But in particular, one reason people like white dwarfs is because sometimes they explode. And they explode if there are two of them going around each other. That happened to, let's see, we'll get this, yeah. There we go. So if this YouTube video comes in after a short commercial, or I still showing the wrong dervish. But anyway, sometimes white dwarfs have companions. And with those companions, they orbit around each other. And as they orbit around each other, they will slowly move in and get closer and closer. And just like a female figure skater pulling her arms and legs in to spin very quickly, these two white dwarfs will be rotating very quickly around each other, once every few minutes or less. And then they touch and they merge. Sometimes when they merge, they explode in a huge conflagration that we call a supernova. And sometimes they just make a single white dwarf, which sounds boring. But if it explodes, boom, star's gone, nothing left. After a few thousand years, nobody knows anything happened. That's boring to me. You can't tell what happened, it's gone. But if they stick around, you have a chance to understand what's still there. So, I'm going backwards again. There we go, there's a pair of white dwarfs about to merge, and you can watch a video and see them merge. So, what happens when they merge into one? Well, they're both going around each other really fast. They're spinning, like a couple of partners, do-si-doing. And when they combine into one, they're still going to spin, and spin very rapidly. And so that's a sign. When we see a big white dwarf out in space that is spinning very rapidly, we're seeing the results of one of these mergers. And they could be spinning once every few hours, and once every few minutes. And this is my student, Zoraida. She graduated this last year. She's now a grad student at UT Austin. She found one white dwarf that is spinning every 80 seconds. Now, to give you an idea, 80 seconds is fast for spinning for most things. So if I stood up here and took 80 seconds to dance in a circle, you'd just think I was weird. And you'd be right. But 80 seconds here, we've got an object that is the mass of the sun, so as much material as the sun, squeezed down into something smaller than the Earth, and spinning once every 80 seconds. And that is the second fastest spinning white dwarf known, with some caveats on it, but we don't care about the caveats. But there's one known to spin faster at 70 seconds. So Zoraida found the second fastest one, and she found the third fastest spinning one that rotates every 3 minutes. But as I told her, 3 minutes, that's forever compared to 80 seconds. So we're working on writing that up. Her work, here she is presenting it in Germany at a conference last year, and because of her abilities, not because of my work, she got into lots of great grad schools, had her pick, and decided to go to Austin. What a shame. No, great student. What do I actually see? This is just a plot of what I see at the telescope. And lots of boring stuff. Down here in the lower right, that's a picture. The red dot is the white dwarf. These are just two other random stars in the sky. And we're assuming they're not doing anything. And we watch them all and measure how bright each one is for about 8 hours. And during that time, we take lots of pictures, and here's how bright everything was over the 8 hours. And it doesn't necessarily look that interesting. You can see when some clouds came through here, everything got a little fainter. Some more clouds here, and some more clouds here. At the observatory, it's always cloudy. But that seems, we can deal with that. Because since all the stars get fainter, we're just comparing the one to the other. When we compare the blue star and the green star to our red-white dwarf, this is what the white dwarf is actually doing. It's slightly getting brighter and fainter. And this one, if you notice, is about every 4,000 seconds. So it's a leisurely 1 hour, a little over 1 hour to do one complete rotation. So freaking slow. But by the way, a normal white dwarf takes about a day or two to complete one rotation. So these are really fast. And one of the questions we want, some of the questions we want to know, and that I don't know the answer to, is we think these are spinning quickly because they're mergers, or they merged in the past, but we don't know that for certain. There are other ways you could get a white dwarf to spin fast. We need to test some of those theories. That means doing more work, which, gosh, will keep me occupied for a few years yet. And as I said, it's sort of another thing we figured out. We can calculate that these stars actually should slow down very, very slowly. Nothing lasts forever. And this up and down motion should continue more or less the same, but we found that for this one that's spinning every 80 seconds, if we watch it for 20 years, it might slow down enough that we can see that the up and down motion is coming a few seconds late after 20 years. And that's just from the white dwarf slowly losing energy, slowing down. It will be billions of years before it slows down significantly. But can I do it over 20 years? Might as well, there's nothing else to do in life. So, and linking this back again to the whirling dervishes, the white dwarfs are spinning in a continual dance, and I like to think of it as it's their connection between themselves and the heavens. And it's the unification of two white dwarfs to make one, and make something that we can study from hundreds of light years away. And that I find fun. And if you don't, that's okay. But thank you for listening here. I do have one thing. If you are in Dr. Wood's class and you want your extra credit, you have to go and see him and sign up after the second talk. So, thank you.
Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Oh, somebody.
I don't want my. Dr. Williams, if it were in like, I don't know what this means, but like a crowded area, would it slow down quicker because of gravitational fields of other objects?
It would have to be an exceptionally crowded area in that you would need another star within like Mercury's distance of the sun. And typical distances between stars are 24 trillion miles, so that's, it's unlikely.
Okay.
Anyone else? Oh,
Dr. Williams, is it possible for us to determine from any of this data, is there any difference you've seen between those that would merge, even if it's far enough in the future? And given the fact that, I can't remember which star it was, that 1984 supernova that we were able to see appear in the sky, is there any way that we can gather data that might determine which of these pairs of white dwarfs would supernova in the future?
Exactly. One of the, what seems to make a white dwarf merger explode instead of just making a bigger white dwarf is the total amount of matter you have. If it's more than about 1.4 times the mass of the sun, 1.4 times the matter of the sun, then it will almost certainly explode. If it's less than that, then it won't. So another way I've thought of these white dwarfs is that they're too small to fail.
anyone else? Okay. Dr. Williams, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to finish, Dr. Williams, thank you for getting us off to a great start for this academic year. Up next, we'd like to welcome to the stage Dr. Brad Kupchak. Brad Kupchak is an associate professor of liberal studies at Texas A&M University of Commerce. A popular culture scholar, he earned his PhD in American culture studies from Bowling Green State University. Dr. Kupchak has taught and done research in, glad you're sitting down for all of this, film, theater, sport, performance, food, we're not done yet, nostalgia, dogs, and mass media studies, in addition to his primary research emphasis of heavy metal music. Heavy metal music and extraterrestrials. I don't know, we're set the bar pretty high this year already. Recent publications include chapters in the edited collections of Heavy Metal at the Movies, Connecting Metal to Culture, Heavy Metal Studies and Popular Culture, points for this one, Breaking Down Breaking Bad, and the Food Network Recipe. Please join me in welcoming him already at the stage, Dr. Rick Kupchak, in his talk, Progressive Listening, History of Sublimity and Resolve being an avant-garde metal expert.
Hopefully, we'll end up getting my slides up on the screen. Thank you for the opportunity. Pardon?
You can use mine.
Okay. That will be a curious talk. Thanks for coming out, and thanks for holding the patience of listening to me kind of tell a story. I've done emphasis of storytelling and memoir in the past. So what you're going to get is me telling tales. And part of me telling tales, it is hopefully going to dovetail into some of the metal music scholarship stuff, but also hopefully you folks get exposed to some ideas that might make some sense. Excellent, thank you. So there's the title. Since the first word is history, I'll give you some history. In the back when, this is the long ago days of LimeWire. This is the long ago days of Napster. I was doing music criticism, and I was writing a blog of music criticism in haiku form. One of the ways that I would find music to listen to is by getting to the LimeWire and just downloading and downloading and downloading and downloading. And I would kind of listen as background noise. I would kind of listen as other stuff was happening. And in doing that, sometimes I found stuff that was worth writing about. And in doing that, sometimes I found stuff that was worth purchasing and removing from the hard drive because I got a legitimate copy. And in the course of one of those listening sessions, I came across the band No Times Card. This was one of those evenings where I was probably looking on the internet trying to find more CDs to buy, as well as having the music going. And I was like, wait a minute, what exactly is going on here? Because it was something different. It was something out of my expectation. It was taking me places that I hadn't really anticipated going. And because it was something out of the ordinary, something that broke formula, it made me think, perhaps there's more to this that I need to think about. In particular, it was track 3, The Snuff Things Are Made Of, that kind of caught my attention. And rather than me describing, perhaps you just want to hear it yourself. So what do we hear? It's an actual question. What do we hear?
Mechanical whirring.
Some kind of mechanical whirring. Yep. What else?
That like ear piercing, like was in there on.
A ear piercing E. Yes. Anything else? Well, we got the death grunt, and that's when I stopped it. Nothing else?
Good drum track.
Lots of drums. Lots of drums. Lots of guitars, lots of noise, lots of stuff. By my count, over that 52 seconds, you ended up having 14 different thematic musical tones. Every couple bars, you add a new portion, and we get the samples, we get the synthesizers, we get the electronics, but we also get the crunchy guitar, and we get the drums. And the first time I heard this, I was like, what the hell is going on? The second time I heard it, it was what the hell is going on? And after about 30 or 40 or 4,000 listens, I'm still not really sure of what's going on. And as a result of that, back. As a result of that, again, now I can pay attention. As a result of that, it made me think of Immanuel Kant. And Kant was writing about seeing the Cathedral of St. Peter's for the first time. He ends up pulling out this quote. And in the quote, a feeling comes home to him in the inadequacy of imagination for presenting the idea and within which that imagination attains its maximum in its fruitless efforts to extend this limit, recoils upon itself, but in so succumbs to an emotional delight. This is what he would title the mathematical sublime. For me, the stuff things are made of is a version of sublimity. I'm a little terrified because there's so many things coming at me and I'm underprepared for where it is that I'm being taken. But at the same time, I'm kind of thrilled that I'm having to make sense of this nonsensical. I'm having to make sense of this overwhelm. I'm having to process something that is really difficult to process. I found that exciting. lecture called Mean Deviation. The premise, the idea behind mean deviation is to examine progressivity in metal music. The way Wagner opens the book is by saying progressive metal in and of itself are artists who are trying to do things that they've never done before. They're trying to do things that end up creating and going in new directions. One does not want to repeat the process again. When that starts, pretty fantastic. After a little while, Wagner ends up declaring, recognizing that all of that innovation started to become formulaic, and bands like listening to Watchtower, and they like listening to Queensryche, and they like listening to Dream Theater, so they started copying those bands. And so prog metal lost its progressivity. For me, the progressivity aspect was kind of fun, and probably something that is worth further consideration. Another step forward to another contextual text that feeds into what I'm doing here today is Robert Loss's Nothing Has Been Done Before. This is a music criticism sort of book. And what Loss is doing is he's suggesting that instead of looking at music retroactively, we're going to look at it prospectively, looking forward. And the way he does this, the way he sets this up, is through using Elaine Badou's notion of events. We don't know when the unexpected comes, and when it does, it changes us completely. Once we had Purple Rain, and once we had Thriller, we were no longer able to think of popular music in the same way. These events rescript, reshape where it is that we're going to go to going forward. Reasonable? For Loss, anytime music was being played held the potential for being eventful. You never knew what the live show was going to be. You didn't know if they were going to play it like the record. You didn't know if they were going to go off in some side dimension. You didn't know that it was going to be a life-changing experience until it happened. Does it happen all the time? Does it happen often? No, it doesn't. It rarely happens. But it has the potential to go that way. So what I was thinking about is, how do I thread these three things together? How do I thread together the sublime? How do I thread together progressivity? How do I thread together the event? And this got me to this question of, is there a possibility of having progressive listening? Can I listen to something in such a way that I've never really heard it before? Can I go into listening to music, listening to an event, and having it be eventable? Because I'm taken somewhere that I haven't been anticipating, I haven't been expecting. This is where the band Howlin' Sycamore comes into play. First record comes out in 2018 off Prosthetic Records. Second record comes out in 2019. What was unexpected for me is I didn't know that Howlin' Sycamore as a band existed until I saw the advertisement on the Prosthetic Records website, which was also doubly weird because I'm quite a fan of two of the dudes in the band. Jason McMaster is probably locally best known for being in Dangerous Toys out of Austin, but it was also part of Watchtower, it was also part of Evil United, it was also part of Broken Teeth, it was also part of Igniter. So here's a guy that I have a pretty good track record with. WTSO, I also had a kind of eventable listening experience when I discovered the band Phil Duoff and the Painter's Palette record and the For My Dog's Eyes record. So I had experience with these folks, but here's a new project coming out. They're self-titled and the 7 Pathways to Annihilation record. When you go to Encyclopedia Metallica and you pull up the Howling Sycamore page, the band is listed under the genre of extreme progressive metal, which we will see if you agree with that description as you get another dose of listening possibilities. The quote from Tissot here describes the intention behind what the band is trying to achieve. And I think for me, the key words off of this quote are the beautiful weirdness that it became, of this amalgamation of stuff in order to try to go somewhere that hadn't been gone before, to create something progressive. From my particular listening experience, this turns into a test case. Can I progressively listen? What happens when I'm confronted by music that I don't know what formulaically is going to come next? I'm trying to read my notes. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? How does it resound? We'll do music first. We don't need to go through that again. What do we hear?
It's not very Manilow.
It is not very mellow. I will agree with that.
Yeah, actual, like, singing this time a little bit. Got it
A little bit of singing. To me, to my listening ears, the first time I took it in and wrote my notes on it, the drums are relentless. McMaster, across the whole of the record, doesn't seem like he's in the same song. It seems like he's singing to a song that's completely removed. And then you get the Bruce Lamont saxophone strong. It's a lot. It was a lot. Was it an event? For me, no. Was it progressive? Did it have progressivity? To me, it certainly did. Was it sublime? Not sure. Partly over the experience listening to the record, there were points that I was like, hey, this is curious. There were other points, like the saxophone in Upended, like, why are we doing this? Where is this coming from? Is this doing stuff just to be weird instead of doing stuff to make sense? So then I go into the second record. Oh, it's already on the second record. So we'll listen to Departure. What do we hear?
Seemed like the guitar took a much more prevalent place in the beginning of that one.
Anything else?
It's the most accessible.
It is the most accessible. Why is it accessible? Because it sounds familiar to us. It sounds more formulaic. It sounds more predictive. It sounds less progressive. It sounds more familiar. To me, there's a whole lot of Dio in that, which is nice-ish, but is it necessarily the direction that I might have anticipated or I might have hoped for an inventable experience? Probably not. Oh. Rat. Here we go. At the tail end of Wagner's Mean Deviation book, he talks about the reformation of Watchtower, a classic prog metal originating band, and wondering what happens with that reformation. Would he be excited to hear a Controlled Resistance Part 2, where they would just go back and revisit that first record. Then he asks, could they? Because 40 years removed, is there the ability to be the 18-year-olds that were writing that original record? Would it be disappointing for it to be anything but more weirdness? And I find that position, I find that take somewhat refreshing, because as the quote suggests, even if they mess it up, even if they're crappy at it, there's still the joy that they're taking in their artistic choices. And I guess when I listened to these records, did I feel as though Howling Sycamore was eventful? Did I feel like it changed my life? Of course not. But I'm not done with it yet. And I'm not done with these performers yet. I can go back and respin these records for a 14th time, and a 22nd time, and a 30th time, and perhaps I end up making more sense out of what those records are to me than what I had from my first experience. To know that these folks are also putting out other things, I will have this knowledge base filtering in, informing me or preparing me for the next Gospel of Witches record, or for the next The Filled Lost record, or for the next Watchtower record, or for the next, maybe even the Dangerous Toys record. I add to my library, I add to my reference base, and even though I won't necessarily know what to expect, I can perhaps put myself in that position of resolve, of recognizing that not everything has to be eventful for it to be enjoyable, but also knowing there is the chance that an event can happen the next time through. Thanks. The dreaded questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Klubczak. Do we have any questions from the audience?
This is really interesting. So I don't know if y'all have the same thing that happens to you as it happens to me. When I've heard a song once, just one time, okay, like a normal song, not like this, I sort of know that I've heard it, right? And we were listening to a radio station every day, and I was like, I've never heard this song before. And it struck me as interesting. I was curious, is your brain able to hear a song in this genre and say, I've heard that, or I haven't heard that? Because to me, I couldn't make any sense of it. So I was really interested in your ability to formulate that in your head and remember it.
I think this is why I found the notion of events so fascinating, because we do have formulaic expectations. When I listen to melodic death metal, I know what melodic death metal is more than likely going to give me. When I listen to power metal, I know what power metal is going to give me. When I listen to something avant-garde, I am excited by the possibility that I might hear something that I haven't heard before. And maybe it is a matter of me just trying to chase novelty in ways that someone who is less invested in a particular style of music might be. Do I hear things that I've heard, that it sounds like I've heard it before? Constantly. And this is kind of what Loss is trying to go against with regard to music criticism. You hear something, it's like, oh, that just sounds like Bon Jovi, or oh, that just sounds like, I don't know, White Zombie. We make those associations, I'll speak only of myself, I make those associations all the time. So for example, the second Howling Sycamore, it sounds a lot like Dio. So have I heard these songs before? Probably, or I've heard elements of them. I've heard the significations within them before, and I make those associations.
some of it sounded a little bit like noise. Okay. So the question is, how do you experiment and have it not be noise? Like, what's the difference between it being so familiar that you go, and this is just like something else, versus it being so experimental that it loses I guess, scaffolding, which you begin to understand how it relates to music. Does that make sense?
It does. Perhaps my easiest way of addressing that is extremity. Sometimes gets pursued for extremity's case. Extremity can create its own expectations. So to listen to death metal, one expects a lo-fi recording style. One expects it to sound like a vacuum cleaner. To the folks outside of that realm, hearing a vacuum cleaner makes no sense. To hear harsh vocals that sound like someone's just burping makes no sense. To hear the pig squeal vocal makes no sense until it makes sense. Until one has the connections to it. And so when it comes to something like the Nordheimsgard clip, with all of those layerings, I've spent enough time with it that now it does start to click. It does start to register. It does become known. And I think my process of getting to that point was pretty fun. Perhaps a different way of saying it. The threshold for weirdness shifts as one encounters more and more weird. I've taken most likely many uninitiated folks and dropped them into a very, very, very deep end. Where if I was trying to climatize you, we wouldn't have started here.
In this field, how do bands find their sound? That's what we associate. We say, something sounds like Dio or something sounds like Queensrÿche. They have sounds. They have an impression. This is really hard to fall into that when you're listening and it's not a pre-formulated track. So how do they find that sound or identity?
The simplest answer, trial and error. The probably more likely answer is folks are fans. The reason one performs these styles of music is because one invests in it, one likes it. But there's also something to the allure of progressivity. There's something to the allure of taking folks somewhere new. And I think that can and does become the point of entry. Why would I choose to put Finnish Humpa polka musics within a death metal context? Until I did, or until it happened. And then all of a sudden, that again, another one of those inventable happenings for me to hear Ventral and just think, this can't happen, but it did, and then I loved it. It was fantastic. That runs a wave for a while, and then people get bored of folk metal and they look for the next thing through. Unless you're me, keep buying folk metal till the time.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Klipchak. That concludes our series for the evening, and thank you, Dr. Clifton, Dr. William. We really appreciate all your wonderful knowledge and sharing with us. We will put on a slide, we will have one in October and in November. We're always looking for volunteers, so throw your friends and colleagues under the bus, send me an email. If they have a great hobby or something interesting you think that they'd love to share, we'd love to get them involved with us and having a talk with us. Once again, thank you from the Graduate School and the College of Innovation and Design, and hope to see you at the next one. We do have a little gift for you, a little tote bag to give away, so pick one up as you go by. Thank you for coming this evening.